So we're going to go ahead and get things started again. Try to keep things on schedule. Get out of here at 6:15, 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. Then we'll go over here to the little lounge and have some drinks and so on. Everybody can meet and greet. So we're on the nurture section. Can somebody help with the page number for that? 91. All right, so a lot of the strategy that we talk about in building the predictability in your business and everything is centered around nurtures, right? We had a raise or a show of hands earlier for people that are contacting expireds and so on, right? So everybody is doing that. Only 3% of the market is typically ready to buy or sell like right now. And everybody's fighting for that 3%. So if we want to gain market share where it's not already oversaturated, it's in getting there early, right? It's finding people that are in a neighborhood that I know has a 10% turnover rate every year, and I'm going to start calling into that neighborhood, talking to folks who have plans to move in the next year or so. I'm going to get those people into my funnel now. Nobody else is calling in that neighborhood, right? Nobody else is going to prospect to get that customer. So if I'm there to get them in the funnel and I do a good job of following up, providing relevant content, the whole way through the sales cycle, then we'll be in the best position to get it when they're ready. So if I can build a nurture base, that provides me a predictable amount of transactions each year that take the volatility out of and take the uncertainty out of how many expireds are there, how many cancels are there, how many for sale by owners are there. We're all fighting to get a piece of those, right? So I can take the volatility out of that, or at least underneath it instill a more predictable foundation by building all of these nurtures into my pipeline. So I want to get to people early in the process, right? 73% of the people that we talk to probably aren't quite ready to meet just yet. And not many people are going to spend the time and the effort it takes to walk with that person until they are ready. So that's where we really want to nail it. So nurturing leads lets you convert unqualified leads into new sales opportunities. Right? Throughout the nurturing process, whether it's 2 phone calls or 20, all of those are going to help us better qualify the lead. That will turn it into a sales opportunity. We can also, with that time, we build trust, we build credibility, right? And with all that, we can accelerate the time that it takes them to make a decision or to give us the commitment or to meeting or whatever the case is, right? The more they trust, like, and know you, the more apt they are to take your suggestion when you say, I think we should move a little sooner than you thought, right? They're not open to that when they don't know you, like you, or trust you, but once you've built that rapport over time and then you say, I know you wanted to wait until July, but I would suggest for these reasons that we go ahead and meet now. If I've built that rapport by nurturing that lead, they'll go, okay. So lead nurturing, right? Go figure. Lead nurturing recognizes that increased sales revenue is a marathon and not a sprint. So it is a marathon, slow and steady, wins the race. Building up a pipeline of people that have plans to make a move is where I will win. Discarding all of those people and just focusing on who wants to move right now is where I don't win enough, right? It's not like I lose, but I don't win enough, right? So by recognizing it's a marathon, taking the time, understanding there's value in this nurturing, right? I'm sending emails, I'm calling these people all the time, they will convert. I know on our numbers, the statistics have shown that basically from the time they enter the funnel, about 3.9 to 4 months, they end up converting into a listing appointment, right? That's assuming that you're qualifying them correctly with the motivation to make a move in 12 months or sooner. You can nurture customers and sway them into making a move based on their activity or behavior, right? So by nurturing them, by providing content, we can see what content they're engaged in also, and that allows us some juice to go back, right, and maybe move them through the cycle sooner, provide them information or feedback so that we can kind of get the sales process started sooner than later, and by watching the activity that they display, helps us kind of clue in on what's important to them, what they're looking for, right? What their hot buttons might be. Somebody's always opening the stuff about how to get more money for your home, right? Obviously, they're kind of motivated maybe on what they could do to get the most money for the home. We can use that in our presentation or as a way to close. Also, as we nurture, we build the trust and the credibility that holds so many people back, and we get them to the point where it removes a lot of fear and risk in doing business with us. Right? If they don't know you, they don't care. Right? And so a lot of times we just don't get business right now because they're just not ready on that first phone call to take that next step. But if we nurture them after a few conversations, a thank you card in the mail, an email with some great information about us, after a few of those touches, they become more open to the idea of doing business with us. So from a visual standpoint, how it enters the funnel, it comes in at the very beginning. We need to have ways to capture the leads. Right? Some people have internet sites out there, landing pages, all those different tools that are used to capture leads, but we still need to make a phone call, right, to those leads to see if they're qualified and what kind of time frame that they're wanting to move within, all those things. So lead capture is the first thing. I got to have somebody to call. Then we're going to contact them and figure out where they're at from a category standpoint. Are they willing to meet right now? Or are they a nurture? A lot of people are going to be nurturers who just aren't ready to meet right now, but in the next 12 months or less, they plan on making a move. 45% of, companies that nurture their leads can experience up to a 45% increase in lead generation return on investment when compared with businesses that don't. So the simple math there is if I have a bunch of leads that have come into my system from money that I spent, right, and I don't nurture those leads properly, then I lose money on those leads that I paid for, right? If I have a nurturing process in place to keep those leads engaged and provide relevant information, then I convert more of those leads, which brings my overall cost per lead down. So if you have, like, for instance, a home value campaign that's running and you're paying a certain amount for each one of those leads, and there's no process to make sure that every single one of those leads gets called, and not just called once, but gets called 8 times until we get a yes or a no, if that process isn't in place, then you're losing money on leads. Right? At one of the last ISA boot camps, there was an operator who was coming around to the idea of having an ISA, and he had 600 home values in his database from like the past 3 months that hadn't been called. Right? So his return is 0 on that investment. So if we nurture the leads, we get a better rate of return on whatever money we're spending to generate them, because we're going to be able to convert more of them. Organizations that use lead nurturing properly can also generate 50% more sales-ready leads for 33% lower cost. And that goes back to what I was talking about. The more leads that we turn into business reduces the overall cost per lead that we have, right? And they're more sales-ready because we don't set them up to meet with an agent until they're ready. Right? That's what the nurturing is for. So if I talk to you and you're not ready to move until September, right, we're going to talk several times, and I'm going to nurture you up until, let's just say, July. And at that point, you'll know, trust, and like me enough. When I say, let's go ahead and meet now, you'll probably do so. Right? And so by doing that, you were sales ready when I set the appointment to meet. Does that make sense? So we can generate more sales-ready leads with a good nurturing campaign. So that should eliminate, I went out, I met with this person, and now they said everything sounded great, but they're not moving for another 90 days. Right? With a nurturing campaign, that wouldn't be the case, because we would just nurture them up until the point when I said, so if everything makes sense, you're willing to get your home on the market in the next couple weeks? Yes, I am. Right? So we just nurture the whole way through until they get to that sales-ready point. Emails also that are used as part of a nurturing campaign get up to 10 times more responses compared to standalone email blasts. What that really means is emails with content referencing what you talked about in a conversation, or their needs, wants, desires that came out of a conversation through the touches that you might have had nurturing the lead. Those emails, because they're relevant to the conversations that you had, get more response, as opposed to just let me send a generic email to everybody in my database, right? There's no relevancy to a large portion of the people that you just sent that to. So we want to make sure that it's relevant. using emails to the nurtures with content that comes out of the conversations that we have, we'll get a better response rate. All this is about keeping us or our team or agency, whatever it is, at their top of mind awareness. Right? So when they are ready and they think real estate, who am I going to go with? You spent 6 months, right, building up your brand with them, and so they know who you are, so they should choose you. 66% of buyers indicate that consistent and relevant communication provided by both the sales and marketing organizations is a key influence in choosing a solution provider. Right? So the key there is relevant. Relevant. If somebody's buying a home, 10 reasons how to get more for the home you're selling isn't necessarily relevant. But yet, I blast that out to everybody in my database. Why? Right? So relevant information is what's really important when it comes to nurturing, drip campaigns, anything like that. My advice is take the library of content that you have. What is appropriate for sellers? What is appropriate for buyers? Right? Now take this group of seller-related content that I've identified. Now, what part of that content would be more appropriate for someone moving in 30 days or 6 months? Right? Or 9 months to a year. It's different information for those people depending on where they are in the sales cycle. I just don't want to drop everything on everybody, right? Then I become that person who's always blasting me with emails that mean nothing to me. And so now I don't even open those emails anymore as soon as I see who it's from, right? I've been taught that their information is crap. It's not relevant. Yes. So long story short answer is yes. There are some basic touch plans for sellers, buyers, home values that are built in the platform. We will go over on Thursday how to set those up also so that you can customize some on your own and add in your content and all that other kind of stuff. 23% of leads that are nurtured have a shorter sales cycle. That all comes down to trust and credibility. Right? After that amount of time, they trust you. Is this a trick? This is a distraction. Right? After time, they just trust you. You gain credibility in their mind, and they're more apt to do business with you quicker than they would otherwise. That's it. As long as you're willing to ask for the business or suggest that we move things along quicker, right? If you're not willing to do that, then it may take just as long, and it may never even go down. But it has the opportunity to be a shorter sales cycle if you take advantage of all the work you're putting in to build that relationship. Nurtured leads make 47% larger purchases than non-nurtured leads, according to the annuities group. Really, again, comes down to trust, right? Especially with a buyer, after you've built a relationship, going around, looking at homes, you've identified their needs and so on. Maybe what they really want is a little bit higher price range than what they originally thought. But after getting to know you, they're willing to accept your advice. You can talk them up maybe to making a more appropriate purchase based on what they want. Right? There you go. Movie of the day.
Speaking of marketing.
Yeah, there you go. How about that? I'm getting dripped on right now or something. All right. So what constitutes a nurture? This gets to the really key 5 fundamentals. There's 5 criteria that we want to look for to be able to say, okay, this person is a nurture. In the top right hand, there's probably a little X there, Daniel. There you go. All right. So a solid and identifiable motivation to move. I know that seems like common sense, but it's not always clear to people what that means, right? And that really needs to be seller directed. One of my pet peeves is giving people information, right? Like we'll say something like, so you said you want to move in the summertime. I guess I'd probably give you a call back in July. Right? I mean, we just gave him the answer. Yeah, call me back in July. Like, I don't know if that was appropriate for them or not, right? I give them the answers oftentimes if we're not careful. So I don't want to say, give them any answers when it comes to what their motivation to move is either. I want to ask, why are they looking at making a move, right? If they're wanting to move to Houston, why Houston? What's important to you about that, right? Those kind of things, the questions we want to ask to really make sure we've got solid motivation. Right? You got to ask yourself, like, does this person really want to move? Because this is not the kind of sale where we can twist somebody's arm, right? Or that we would want to. Like, it's different. I came from the investment world where you would really key in on greed a lot of the times, and you could talk or persuade somebody into taking action based on the potential of what they might get. But when you're talking about asking somebody to uplift their life and make a move, like, you can't really talk somebody into that. Or at least I don't want to be the one to do that. So I'd rather spend my time calling 1,000 people if I had to find the people that say, I do want to make a move. You don't have to talk me into it. Here's why I want to make a move, and I got to move in 12 months or less. Right? And I want them to tell me that. If somebody says, I'm going to make a move in the next year or so do you mean that you see making a move in 12 months or sooner? Right? Just to clarify, make sure that we're on the same page. So solid motivation is the first thing that you're looking for. Somebody says, I'm thinking about making a move. Why? What has you thinking about it? All right? Our mindset goes to how motivated are they? Second criteria we're trying to look for is a clear time frame to list within the next 12 months. If they don't have and they don't themselves say, yes, I have a plan to move in the next 12 months, then they would not be a nurture. Simple as that. They'd be what I would call follow-up, right? And so I'm still going to follow up with them. I'm still going to nurture them, so to speak, right, and drip on them whatever content I have. But as far as what really constitute a nurture, where I can predict my business where it's going to come from, it's going to be 12 months or sooner. So I'm motivated, I'm going to make a move in 12 months or sooner, and there is an established opportunity, meaning that they don't already have an agent they're committed to working with exclusively, and they're open to meeting with a new agent. Right? So some people will say they already have an agent picked out. That doesn't mean that they're committed or any reason why we shouldn't. Right? That's fine. We still want to pursue that opportunity. We just want to make sure that they're willing and open to meeting with us when the time is right, and we need a yes. So we have they're motivated, they're going to move in 12 months or less, they're open to meeting with us when they're ready. Do we have good, valid contact information to get back in touch with them? Do we have a good email address so that our touch plans and our drip campaigns actually go somewhere? Right? So we want to make sure that we have the best contact information. What's the best number to reach you at? If I don't reach you on this number, is there a different number I should try? All of those things to give you the best chance possible at getting back in touch. And the last one is the seller has provided the sales team with a clear follow-up time frame, right? And the way that I usually would transition into that is, so when would you suggest that I reach back out to you in regards to setting up a time to meet? Right? If it's not going to be anything that's going down now, he's going to move in November, right? I could easily say, so based on what you told me, you mentioned you're probably going to take the next step in November, so I'll probably give you a call back then in November. Right? That's me giving him the answer again. So I'd much rather say, when would you suggest, I know we talked about a timeline a little bit, but when would you suggest that I reach back out to you in regards to setting up a time to meet? All right? And they give us an answer. That answer is authentic and genuine, much better than anything that we would kind of fill in for them. So those are the 5 criteria that we're looking for when I have somebody on the phone and I'm trying to determine, is this person a nurture? Are they motivated? Do they have plans to sell in the next 12 months or sooner? Are they willing to meet with us when the time comes? Do I have good contact information for them? And did they give me a time to follow up? Those 5 things. If they meet those 5 criteria, then they're a nurture. We should convert those people into a listing appointment on average in 4 months, as long as we do our job, staying on top of it, not dropping the ball on a follow-up. You miss 1 or 2 follow-up calls, and one day you'll log into the system and they're going to be active. Right? I mean, that's happened probably to everybody in here at some point. There was somebody I was supposed to call, and then I went back, and then now they're active with a different agent. Right? And in some cases, you did all the work for that other agent. I spent 3 months nurturing this person, got them all the way to the point where they felt comfortable to list their home, and some person calls them out of the blue and gets it on 1 call, right? Because I did all the work for them. So that follow-up is where the fortunes are made, right? Pennies are made in the sale, but a fortune is made in the follow-up, and nobody does it. That's where there's not many millionaires, right? I mean, only 47% follow up more than twice. We just read something earlier that it takes 5, 6, 7, 8 times to get the deal done in today's environment. So if I'm not following up more than twice, I'm missing half or more of the potential deals out there that I could be getting, right? And I was even in touch with them. I had that person at one point in my funnel, and then I dropped my ball on the follow-up and lost that deal. That was easy money, right? I had it in my funnel. So nurturing, the processes, being able to determine what is a nurture will help you focus those efforts so you convert them. If I don't hold to those standards on the motivation time frame and those other things, then I end up with a bunch of people who shouldn't be in my nurture pool that I'm spending all this time calling and everything, and I can't figure out why I'm not getting the conversions that I would want. It's because I'm not holding true to my criteria, right? Oftentimes, I have an ISA who will try to fit somebody into this 12 months or sooner. I go back and listen to the call. They didn't say 12 months or sooner. They might have said something really vague, and then you made it into 12 months or sooner because you wanted to put a little check on the board to say you got a nurture today or something. You know what I mean? So that's where it's really, you're not doing yourself any favor. Nobody gets paid here to put a check mark. I got a nurture today. Right? All that does is cost me money. If I'm spending the time calling that nurture back and it's not really somebody I should be calling, it's costing me money, right? If I'm paying somebody to make that call, it's costing me money because they're spending time calling somebody they shouldn't even be calling. So I promise you, I would err on the side of being too strict on that criteria than to be too laxed. There are quantitative goals, which are measurable outcomes, and then there are qualitative goals, which are business outcomes related to our nurture efforts. We want to focus on those goals. The quantitative ones would be, and this is again measuring our outcomes, it would be to improve our conversion rate of new leads to qualified prospects to X. So meaning that I want to improve how many leads I turn into actual appointments, right? By nurturing leads, I can better improve that ratio. I'd have to know the number, first of all. So going back to our metrics, we want to track our numbers, our closing ratios, all those kind of things so that we have a baseline to start from. But nurturing leads will allow us to improve the conversion rate. We can improve conversion rates on new leads to close deals, right? New leads come in, they don't get nurtured, I get less closed deals. New leads come in, I actually have a process to get in contact with them, and then I have a process to nurture them until they're ready. Now I end up closing more deals. I didn't have more opportunities, you know what I mean? It's not like I got dumped a whole bunch more opportunities. I just did better with the opportunities I already had. Everybody here right now has opportunities that we're not going to get because we're going to drop the ball somewhere along the line on a follow-up or a nurture. So that opportunity is already there. That's not like an opportunity you need to go out and get. It's there. So if we become better at nurturing the leads, creating those processes, we'll take what we already have and we'll just convert more of it. We'll increase the total ready-to-buy, ready-to-sell leads per month to X. Right? If you do this right, what you can do is I can go to Mike's database and see how many nurtures he has in his database with a task or a follow-up planned for July. That gives me a good indication on what kind of listing opportunities he sees in July. If he wants to get a look at what October's business looks like going into the slow time of the year, I can see how many nurtures he's got, right, with a follow-up date in October. There's a few tweaks to that that I would not spend time on now. We'll spend some time elsewhere when we're not backed up against the clock to explain how I would even fine-tune that a little bit more. But the nurtures provide that predictability, and you can look out. And those months where you have a bunch of nurtures with action dates, those are the months where you stand the chance of getting a good amount of appointments. And if I know what my appointment-to-close ratio is, then I can back into how many listings I probably could be looking at also. We can reduce the lost number of opportunities, right, because we're constantly staying in contact and nurturing these leads, especially opportunities where you go out and you meet with somebody and they're not quite ready to pull the trigger yet. So we go back to the office with the best intentions to stay in touch and to do this and to do that. And then we get caught on the other person who's ready to move right now, and this person falls through the cracks, right? And they end up being a lost opportunity even though we had them. So the process is to nurture, putting somebody in place if you don't have the time to execute those processes will reduce the lost opportunities. We can generate X incremental opportunities from existing leads. So like I was saying, we all have a bunch of leads in our database right now, right? If we can create a process to get in contact with those leads, figure out which ones fit into the 5 criteria of a nurture, and then execute on nurturing them, we'll take the leads we already have and crank out more opportunity from them without spending an additional dollar on any new leads. We'll actually reduce the cost of the overall leads. And we can shorten the sales cycle. Right? A lot of these people, I think, when I say they convert from a nurture to a listing appointment in 4 months, that's probably somebody who said, I'm looking at making a move in 6 months. right? But they end up meeting in 4 months because over that time, you build the rapport and you gain the trust and the credibility that they're willing to move a little sooner. And then we get better close rates. Why? Because the people we're meeting with, they're ready to sell, right? Because we're not meeting with them until they get to that stage of the game. So the qualitative goals are to convert people that are maybe prospects, to convert them into qualified prospects through the touches, the nurturing, whether it's email, phone, whatever, over time. We qualify them to determine whether or not they're real prospects, or we figure out that they're not qualified. There's no motivation. Their time frame is weak, whatever it is. We can move the prospects through the selling buying pipeline faster, same kind of thing there. Have actual conversations with your prospects, right? That's high quality stuff. Build trust and educate our prospects. Really today it's all about educating the consumer, right? It's their idea to do whatever it is they choose to do. We're just kind of educating them along the way. Building trust. It allows us to collect and qualify information from the leads. All that information is going to allow us to better close them and determine what their wants and needs are. And determine whether or not I can help. If I can't help, I want to tell you I can't help, right? But I really don't know unless I have an opportunity to spend some time asking you some questions. That will come from the nurturing process. Talk regularly with current leads to maintain availability. So if I have a process in place to set the follow-up tasks, to nurture these leads properly, there'll never be a big span of time when I'm not talking to you, all right? And I can always reconfirm the timeline's still intact. We're still on the same page as far as when we think we'd like to get on the market, whatever the case is. By creating the nurture tasks, right? That little pop-up comes up, says, call John Smith today. Hey, John, how are you? Last time we spoke, we were thinking about maybe taking the next step now. Are we still on target for that? Whatever it might be based on the previous conversation. And we can get referral business from current customers, right? We can also get testimonials. Testimonials are like a referral in a sense, right? That testimonial, for every testimonial I get from a happy client will lead me to 3 new clients. So, there's money in getting those testimonials too, if you have a process to use them and get them in front of people. And then with people on the phone, calling your database, nurturing the leads correctly, we can reactivate inactive leads also. Right, so there's a lot of leads in the database for folks that maybe are a year old. But that doesn't mean that they're any less quality of a lead unless their status has changed, right, or their plans have changed. But I can tell you that like in January, I was running our ISAs through home value leads that were a year old. And we got, 24 or so appointments from a year old plus leads, over this year already. And a good portion of those turned into listing opportunities. So don't discount the old leads that are in your database. It's hard to focus on those if you're trying to make those calls yourself because you're barely able to keep up probably with the new leads that are coming in, right? But if you have an opportunity to employ someone to really go through your database and make those calls, put those old leads in the queue also. Old expireds, 6 months old, a year old expireds, great lead source, unless they've changed to an active or sold status. But they're not getting hounded or blown up with calls anymore, right? Like they were that first 60 days when they came off the market, right? A lot of times they're like, it didn't sell this summer, we're going to take it off and we're going to revisit it next year, right? So that person is primed for a call right now. Or they took their home off the market in October because they didn't want people tramping through their home over the holidays or they were going to be out of town. That person is just now getting ready to meet again with somebody to list their home again. Right? So if we're not circulating those old leads through, we miss opportunities there too. And we can improve sales activity by working only sales leads. Right? People that are willing to move, they've been qualified at 12 months or less time frame, all those other things. So we're spending our time working on quality prospects that we have an opportunity to close. So nurturing will provide all of our efforts to be directed in the right area, right? On all these people that we know are potential closes. So this is just a screenshot of the Money Tree platform that everybody has probably got questions on, and we're going to go through all that on Thursday. But this is just kind of a glimpse of the lead profile. This is kind of the middle section. This is all changed now, as a matter of fact. They redid the user interface. But what this is telling you here is this is in a status of nurture. So originally it would have been in a not contacted status. The ISA Crystal called this person on March 4th. Based on the conversation, it went into a status of nurture. We can see that displayed here. And then a task was set up to reach back out to them on April 20th. And a little pop-up would have shown that day that that task needed to be completed, and a call would have been made to that person. If it was to turn into, I'm not interested, my plans have changed, I'm not going to move anymore, then the status would change and it would end up here and lost, right? If an appointment was set, status would change to appointment set, and so on. But that's kind of how that looks. I talk to somebody, they meet all the criteria for a nurture. My notes would go right here. If I'm an ISA, I want to put the notes so that the agent understands what was talked about and what's important for them to close the deal. Then I status select it, the appropriate status, set up my task, and I'm on to the next call. And that's the end of the section on nurtures.